The speech by Robert David Steele. The system is rigged. The deep state is threatening all that we hold dear. You and I, together, are going to unrig the system and bury the deep state. I will confess that I and my senior advisors have been slow to understand that I was elected accidentally. The rigged system collapsed in the face of the common sense of the participating voters at the last minute. I have also been slow to recognize that while I am a fringe president just as Barack Obama was, 26% of the eligible voters voted him into office, 27% voted me into office. There is a huge difference between us. He was the preferred candidate for the deep state, while I am the enemy of the deep state, and they know it. Tonight I am announcing one major national initiative, 3 major national intelligence and counterintelligence decisions, and several supporting presidential initiatives. My intent is to unify America, to engage with and empower every eligible voter, 47% of whom did not vote at all in 2016, and to restore integrity to our government by displacing the two-party tyranny and making it possible for all voters to elect an honest Congress that is not subordinate to the deep state through bribery and blackmail. This will make possible evidence-based governance in the public interest, instead of corrupt earmarks tailored for the special interests. I am submitting tomorrow to Congress the Electoral Reform Act of 2017, the Unity Act. This act corrects the 12 different ways in which our electoral process has been rigged by the two-party tyranny. It will create a level playing field for all of the small parties, both those that are accredited such as the Constitution, Green, and Libertarian parties, and those that are emergent, such as the Working Families Party. It will enable independents to be elected, and it will end the control of the two-party tyranny over federal election ballots, creating free and equal access to being on the ballot, free and equal access to public funds for campaigns, and free and equal access to all forms of media. It will implement paper ballots counted publicly on site and exit polls to end the electronic ballot fraud that is prevalent across America, and that Hillary Clinton used to steal 13 primaries from Bernie Sanders, as documented by the white paper from Stanford University. It is my intent to barnstorm the country and discuss this act with all citizens who wish to take back the power from the two-party tyranny. All parties, in my view, are toxic. They demand a winner-take-all cabinet. They demand that the president embrace party platforms that are bought and paid for by multiple billionaires, and they demand that secret promises made to high-dollar donors to the parties be honored by the president. All that ends now. To help me, and to help all of you, force our Congress to restore integrity to our electoral system and thus to our government, I am hosting an electoral reform summit that will be simultaneously offered in major cities across the country, culminating in delegations from each regional summit coming to Washington, D.C. for a final open conversation that will be recorded and broadcast by the new Trump channel. I have asked the leaders of each existing small party to host their own electoral reform summits in advance of the open summits, and I have also asked Cynthia McKinney, Dennis Kucinich, Jesse Ventura, Ralph Nader, and Ross Perot to study the 12 proposed fixes and advise me as to their sufficiency. It is not up to the Republican majority to force this measure through, and I frankly question whether Paul Ryan, Scott Walker, and Reince Priebus, whom I am dismissing as chief of staff today, are at all interested in unrigging the system. Nor is the Democratic minority led by arch-Zionist Chuck Schumer, a man who appears very afraid of what the secret intelligence community has on him, at all interested in unrigging the system. For the Electoral Reform Act of 2017, the Unity Act, to pass, each congressional constituency is going to have to rise up and demand from their individual senators and representatives a vote in favor of this act. I will demand a roll call vote, and if this act does not pass by the end of April, I will devote the balance of my term to helping defeat every person voting against the act in 2018 and beyond. We the people cannot govern ourselves without the Electoral Reform Act, the Unity Act. I have realized that the single fastest way to heal America is to put the American public back into the American government. I cannot do this by myself. We the people must take the power back, and the Unity Act is how we do that. On the intelligence and counterintelligence front, I have signed 3 executive orders today. The first terminates the National Security Agency, which has no legislative charter. The era of NSA spying on and blackmailing our politicians and doing mass surveillance on our public is over. I have appointed William Binney as the interim transition director responsible for liquidating most of the NSA, while migrating roughly 30% of NSA into a new Directorate of Signals Intelligence at the restored Central Intelligence Agency. The second executive order suspends all CIA operations and orders all CIA employees home on paid leave for 30 days. CIA employees overseas will continue with the cover assignments but not meet with any clandestine assets, nor will they meet with foreign intelligence services. With the complete cooperation of a handful of loyal NSA employees who have access to every phone call and email made by CIA employees in the past year, the FBI is going to do a very rapid investigation, one that will include a thorough interrogation of former CIA Director John Brennan, and we are going to get to the bottom of the rogue elements of the CIA that have been so disruptive to our attempts, even within a rigged system, to hold a presidential election and begin a new administration. The third executive order mandates the redirection of the NSA transition staff toward full support of the FBI against sedition. All emails and all telephone calls associated with those who are organizing a violent American Spring will be processed, a diagram of evidentiary links established, and indictments pursued against George Soros, Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, and any others including those on the right such as the Koch brothers, should the evidence call for indictments. I will no longer tolerate, nor should you, the malicious destabilization of our country for selfish ends. A number of supporting decisions will be implemented in March and April. One will just list them. As they've developed, more information will be provided through the Trump channel directly to the public. First and foremost, I am firing everyone except Steve Bannon and 2 personal aides, and abolishing the National Security Council. Jared Kushner will remain a trusted advisor and take over the Office of Presidential Personnel, firing the individual put in there by Reince Priebus to plant deep state establishment moles across the government. We will fill all political positions by the 4th of July, and every person appointed will go through a presidential academy to ensure they are all able to understand and implement our policies that will make America great again. David Stockman will be the new Chief of Staff, and in place of the National Security Council, I am creating an Office of National Strategy that will work very closely with the new Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget to ensure that we are addressing all threats, not just military threats, and that we are harmonizing all policies, not just national security policies, to achieve peace and prosperity for all in the context of a balanced budget with no borrowing, which means a 50% cut in the size of the federal government by year 4. A grand strategy summit will be organized in April, and I will present Congress and the public with a proposed grand strategy before the congressional recess for the summer. Every political appointee will understand and support this grand strategy, or be dismissed. The press is being thrown out of the White House and will not be admitted to the old or new executive office buildings. The area that has been wasted on the press. These people are not journalists, they are sock puppets for the deep state, and what they have been doing for the last year and a half is incompetence at best, sedition at worst. Enough. The space will be converted into a Trump channel and studio that also houses the nucleus of an open-source intelligence agency that can meet the needs of all cabinet departments through commercial outsourcing, and the Office of National Strategy. We are going to start doing holistic evidence-based governance, and both the facts and the policies as well as the budgets will be fully transparent to the public. The Trump channel is going to be both fun and educational. I will no longer use Twitter, which along with Facebook and Google surrogates has been repressing pro-Trump conversations and elevating anti-Trump conversations, including those that are actively seditious. We are going to create a new nationwide service that will allow me to communicate directly with every citizen who wishes to opt into what we are going to call Trump BTS. I will use these to ask America what it thinks. I will use poll mold to digest what I hope will 150 million answers that can be sorted by congressional district. Beginning in April, I will start doing short fireside video chats that will be freely available to all citizens, and I will demand that each of our cabinet officials organize their own short fireside chats on every issue, every policy, every budget line item. The press will no longer be allowed direct access to me or to government officials for at least 90 days. They will be required to submit questions for the record. Instead of a press secretary floundering around for lack of knowledge, those questions will be answered by the best qualified government executive, whether political or professional, and returned first to the originator of the question, and then posted to the Trump channel. Among the first tasks of the open source agency will be the evaluation of all media articles and broadcasts for veracity. The fake news mainstream media is either going to start telling the truth, or they will lose their public charters. The press will have to earn its access by demonstrating its ability to do serious investigative journalism in the public interest. We will unrig the White House petition website that only counts 1 out of every 3 or 4 votes. I am asking Joan Blades, founder of Move On and more recently of Living Room Conversations, to establish a new, more open process for engaging the public in a conversation, not just polling them. I imagine that public consensus will lead to some major policy decision in the near term, such as the legalization of marijuana and hemp, and the establishment of a public standard price list for all medical procedures and prescriptions. This is your government. Let's take it for a drive together. Separately from the official website that I am asking Joan to manage, I have directed Brad Parscale to create a Debt Be Gone website in which each citizen who owes money, student debt, medical debt, family credit card debt, small business debt, may opt in and appoint me as an individual, not just as their president, for the purpose of renegotiating that debt with the banks. I estimate that we can aggregate no less than $1 trillion in debt renegotiation authority, and as much as $3 trillion. If the banks will not collaborate in cutting that debt by at least half, it is my intent to declare a national debt jubilee, and grant each individual debtor a presidential pardon that makes legal action by the banks an impossibility. I am throwing out the tax reform package. I now realize that it does not change the dynamic in which Main Street and individual earners carry the full weight of the government on their banks. I have consulted with Dr. Edgar Feiger of Wisconsin, inventor of the automated payment transaction tax, and after consultations with the governors, it is my intent to implement this, and the income tax, and all other forms of taxation, and close down the Internal Revenue Service. The genius of the transaction tax is that it applies to all transactions, notably Wall Street currency and stock transactions. It shifts the burden from Main Street to Wall Street. The tax rate is set by the public. This means that we cannot go to war in the future without the public voting for an increase in the transaction tax. We will never again borrow money from banks. I am also throwing out the healthcare reform package because it is inherently dishonest. The two-party tyranny is avoiding the core reality, which is that the medical and pharmaceutical industry have a racket going in which they manipulate prices across all boundaries. There is actually no price list for any given medical procedure or any given prescription. Not only are medical prices out of control, but our hospitals and our so-called medicines are killing more people than they should, at the same time that they are bankrupting the elderly. Enough already. Every citizen will be covered for all health challenges. But first we need to do a racketeering investigation of the health industry and establish a basic price list. I have decided to work with the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, to establish a comprehensive price list. He has one of the top medical tourism industries in the world, and we are then going to determine why our health industry is dysfunctional if not completely criminal. That's it. I regret that Reince Priebus saw fit to keep many of these ideas from me when he first received what is now known as the spy's Christmas message for Trump, and in its more recent incarnation, Memorandum for the President or Memo for Trump. Reading those two documents will help any of you who wish understand how I have finally arrived at what I believe is a win-win for all of us. The author's motto is, "The truth at any cost lowers all others' costs." We all need to embrace that motto. I beg of you all, demand the Electoral Reform Act, the Unity Act. Join me in burying the deep state and restoring integrity to our government. I have my flaws, but I believe that we have a common enemy. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I offer my hand in friendship to all of you, and I promise that henceforth there will be no presidential wars, no unconstitutional spying on U.S. politicians or citizens, no laws bought and paid for by special interests or foreign powers. Join me in making America great again by putting the American people back into the American government. With unity will come integrity. I cannot do this without you. I pray that Almighty God gives us the light and the courage this day. God bless America.